Welcome back to the video series I'm Looking for Work. In this section we're going to cover your resume. In many cases your resume will be the first contact that you have with a potential employer, and it better be in good order and stand out if you want to be noticed. Many people think that filling in a resume with every aspect of their life is essential to get the job, and in some cases this may be true. However, organising your resume so it can be browsed over quickly for key points is probably more important. It doesn't matter if you're sending your resume to a HR department or a small business owner, it's likely that they'll all have one thing in common. They'll most likely all be overworked and looking for the fastest way that they can reduce the number of applicants. So you need to make sure that your resume gets their attention, is easy to read, and stands out above the rest of the pile. I personally go over the top with a great presentation. If it's in hard copy, I bind it, and whenever it's possible I also hand deliver it. I don't want the mailman scrunching it up for me. My resume is broken down into 4 sections: a cover page, a brief overview of my personal details and skills, my work history, and my references. My cover page is very simple, usually consisting of the word resume or curriculum vitae in the middle of the page. It has my name and my address and my contact details so that they're easy for people to find. I set this out in the centre of the page with my name and the words Resume of Gordon Russell in a large font size. My address and contact details are usually included in a smaller font in the bottom of the page. A cover page example has been included for you to have a look at in the sample resume that comes with this course. Your cover letter and this brief overview can often be the difference between you getting an interview or ending up on the rejected pile. Make sure you get this right and put your best foot forward here. Don't lie, you'll be caught out, but be creative with your choice of words and how you present this information. Make sure you include the following in this part of your resume: your name, both your first and last name, a vision statement, your address, your contact information including your home phone, your mobile phone, email address. Include any other way that an employer could use to contact you. An overview of your skills, your date of birth, your marital status, current driver's license information if you drive, your education statement, and any languages that you speak. I'd suggest including any or all of the information that you think is relevant and leaving out the parts you think could hurt your application. I'll give you an example of some things that I would actually leave out. For many years I worked in technology related industries, and I often got graduates from overseas applying from work, quite often from India. Their first instinct was to put in their resumes that they had some kind of residency status, assuming that my knowing this would be an advantage to them. Over time I've got to know some of these people, and I've actually helped some of them get alternative employment. And every time I've suggested that they leave their residency status out of their resume altogether. Let the employer assume that they have that status. It was always a warning sign to me that if someone had to point out to me that they needed a residency status, that it could cause me pain in the future. Some employers may completely overlook a job applicant just because they've highlighted the fact that they're not local and that their residency status may be an issue on their resume. I've included a copy of the brief overview in the example documents that come with this course. They're inside of the example resume. I think that most of the things in the brief overview are self-explanatory. However, the vision statement is something that I think is important, and if done well can highlight your enthusiasm and skills when the employer is browsing over your resume. Like I mentioned before, employers don't have a lot of time to work out who they're going to interview and who they're going to cut. And this is one place that you can make yourself stand out from the rest of the people applying for a job. When writing your vision statement, be selective about what you include. Be brief and sell the sizzle, not the steak. You need to deliver words here that tell the future employer that you have the skills that they need, but without mentioning every skill. You need to say that you're excited about the prospects of working for their company and that your skills will benefit them. You need to write a statement that says that you're going to be an asset to their business without using cliches like that. This is possibly the one chance that you'll have to make them think that they need to look beyond your overview, even if you do not have the skills that they're after. I've seen vision type statements in resumes that have caused me to read further because of how well they've been written. However, I've seen bad ones too, and they would have had a better chance of getting the job if they'd left out their vision statement. Some vision statement examples have been included in the example resume that come with this course. However, I'd like to suggest that if you can't write something that you think sounds spectacular and will be of benefit to you, leave it out. One more thing, get someone to read it for you and ask them to be honest with their opinion, because it could mean the difference between you getting a job and missing out on an interview altogether. My advice to you when it comes to employment history is to be honest and include all that you need and leave out the parts that you don't. If you get to have an interview, you'll be able to explain in person anything that's needed to be known that you've neglected to mention in your resume. I usually make sure that I include the following details for each of the jobs that I include in the resume: starting and finishing date, the employer's name, an overview of the duties performed, and a list of the duties that you performed and the skills that you used in that position. If you left this position on bad terms, don't try to explain why here. You have an opportunity to explain the circumstances in person if you get an interview, but you may not get an interview if you try to explain the circumstances and it sounds bad. Most of the other things in this section are pretty straightforward, except for the overview of the duties performed. This description of the things that you did in your previous job can be of benefit if written well. However, if you put information in here that just rambles on for no reason, you might be better off leaving it out. Please have a look at the example resumes and see if you can write a brief overview of the work that you did when you were in the previous position, and consider leaving this part out if it's not well written. Regarding references, I have to say that allowing someone to speak to my future employer and have an impact on my interview process scares me. It scares the living daylights out of me. However, I believe that references are essential. Every time that you include a reference, you're putting your job interview into the hands of a person that could tell your future employer something about you that could cost you the job. So be selective with who you include here. I advise that it's always best to include references, and if possible from the people that you've most recently worked for. However, if you think that that could be detrimental to your job application, write something like, "References will be provided upon request." Saying that in itself may set off some alarm bells. However, if you know you're not going to get a good reference from a previous employer, then don't include them here. You can always include personal references here, or references from previous employers. Don't assume that you are automatically going to get a bad reference from a previous employer. You could always get someone you know to call the previous employer and ask some questions about you, and if the feedback's positive, include them despite your perception that they were going to give you a bad reference. It's always best to include references, and I've included a reference section in the example resume that comes with this course. In addition to the example resume that comes with this video series, I've included links to some resume writing services and other articles that tell you in detail how to write a resume. I hope you found this module on preparing your resume to be helpful, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the next video.